Welcome to Dollars and Cents. My name is Chelsea Gary. I'm the program coordinator in the Office of Student Experience. Our speaker this afternoon will be Ms. Pemra Seaton. She is with us from the VCU School of Medicine as the Financial Aid Director and Assistant Dean of Student Affairs. Before she begins, just a few reminders. You all have an evaluation. Please take the time to fill those out. We do take those seriously, so we want to make sure that we get those back from you before you head out. Also, hopefully you grab some information about our iGrad Financial Literacy online resource. We really encourage you all to check that out. It's free for all health sciences students. Also, if you register for an account, you have the chance to win free money. That's $250 a semester. So if you have any questions, everyone's like, yeah. If you have any questions about that, feel free to stop by the resources table on your way out. But without further ado, please help me in welcoming Ms. Pemra Seaton.
Thank you, Chelsea. Hi, everyone. As Chelsea mentioned, I am the Assistant Dean for Student Affairs and Financial Aid for the School of Medicine. So how many of you are medical students? Okay, so my students are here. I know we had about 40 RSVPs, but hopefully they will come as I speak about this presentation. So we have been partnering with the Office of Student Experience since last year to give some additional resources to MCV campus on different topics. And one of them is obviously today budgeting and smart spending. I think majority of it is common sense and you already know it, so we will probably reinforce or refresh some of the things that you already know and maybe come up with some new ideas. How many of you are undergraduate? Are there any undergraduates in the group? Okay, so dental, I have dental students, pharmacy, okay, health sciences. I know I have my medical students. Any other program I'm missing? PhD program, okay. So welcome you all, and so I would like to introduce you to Jessie. Jessie is in health sciences, and she has a little bit of discomfort about financial matters because she's not really making a budget. She's not spending her refund based on her, prepared budget. She has no clue about her loan balance, and she also has no clue about her credit information. Do any of you feel like you're more like Jessie? You can be honest. I won't hold it against you. Okay. So you're like, I'm just getting what the financial aid people are giving me, and I'll deal with how to pay this when I graduate, so I'm not even worried about. You can be as honest as you want. This is your safe environment, okay? So we know some of you are that way, and some of you are in our office all the time, to a point that you may drive us crazy. But so it is fine. The goal of this presentation is obviously to start thinking about what you can do to change that. So Jessie's situation is probably not unique. Majority of you could be thinking like this. However, the fact that she has no idea about her student loan history is not forgivable, because as students, I want you to know that you have access to your own personal student loan history at any time you want. All of your federal loans are listed on NSLDS website, which is the National Student Loan Database System. You do not have to take notes because this presentation can be emailed to you, or it will be posted on the Office of Student Experience website. So you will have this presentation at the end. Not knowing about your credit is also not a good excuse, because you can go to annualcreditreport.com and you can find out about your credit, and it is a safe website to get your credit. So if you feel like you're Jessie, please look at these two resources, and you will find out about your information. Now meet Derek. Derek is a medical student who is in the last year of his medical education, so he's facing interview season now, and then he will move on to residency, and even though he has done all his homework, he kept in touch with the financial aid people, he was lucky enough to get a couple of scholarships, but he's an out-of-state student. As you know, out-of-state pays a lot more than the in-state students. And now he's faced with a huge amount of student loan debt. And even though he feels he followed everything and he did everything right, he is a little bit concerned about the amount of debt that he's going to graduate with. How many of you are in that boat? Okay, so honest people, okay. I'm a little concerned about the debt that I'm going to have. So we're gonna talk about hopefully a couple of things that will ease your mind. Now, professional schools have very detailed exit counseling. So I know some of you are dental. I know Ms. Karen Gilliam does that when you're at the final stage or right before you graduate. We do that here at medical school. But if you're attending a program that does not have like either group or in-person counseling, you can contact the financial aid person of that school, and you can request in-person counseling before you move away from campus, okay? So it's usually very beneficial to have that conversation with the financial aid person. I know professional schools hold it mandatory, but not all programs do it in a mandatory manner. So budgeting, and some of the components to understand when it comes to budgeting. So your budget obviously is going to be made up your income and expenses, and your expenses are categorized as like this. So you have your fixed expenses, you have your flexible expenses, which makes up your total expenses, and then you have your monthly income and your disposable income. Monthly income is basically everything you have as income. Disposable income is what's left over after the taxes are taken out. So these could be new to you because most of you may not have earned income yet, or all your life you went straight through all the schools that you attended, and maybe other than a couple of part-time jobs, you really don't have regular jobs to reach to that level yet. But this is what makes up your budgeting, your income, and obviously your expenses. Fixed expenses are always fixed. Since you're students, your tuition is your fixed expense. It never changes, and you have no power over changing it. Your flexible expenses could be, I know you have to, I don't know, maybe sign up with one of the cable providers, or majority of the students are not using cable anymore. You go just online to do stuff. So maybe Hulu membership, Netflix membership, something like that. That is not a necessity, but you may choose to have it, and you may, maybe depending on what you choose, the expense may change for you. You may, when it comes to fixed expenses, as a student, you have the rent expense, which is your major expense. If you're not living with your parents, you may choose to live with a roommate, or choose to live in a little bit of a cheaper apartment to control that fixed expense. So you may look into those things as well, so you can play with it a little bit. What is budget? What's budgeting? Obviously, budgeting is a spending plan for your money. So a budget takes income and expenses into account and provides estimates for how much you make and spend over a given period. Most of you will be talking about budgeting per semester, because I know at VCU we pay and we charge your money based on semester. So majority of you are dividing your money over fall, spring, and then if you're attending summer, then that's another award that we do, and you get your refund. So you will need to, since your main income is financial aid, you will need to think about in terms of semester-based budgeting most of the time, because that's when you get paid, right? So when you think about budgeting, you will also need to take into account, okay, fall semester could be less number of months than the spring semester for you, or vice versa. So whatever refund you're getting, you will divide it among those months. And obviously you have your fixed expenses. In your budgeting, you will need to have some cushion for your emergencies, but you don't necessarily have to borrow against your total cost of attendance unless those emergencies have happened. So what I'm trying to say here is, you're all given a certain cost of attendance. That is the maximum financial aid you can borrow if it's mostly made up of loans. So if you are able to stay below the maximum cost of attendance per semester, then you're fine. And majority of you do that, I see that. Majority of you are very conscientious about your borrowing. However, if you're an out-of-state student and your cost of education is much higher and you have to get an apartment, which is a little bit more expensive, or you're the kind of person who can't do well with a roommate, so you need to have your own place, so it is very possible that you are borrowing up to the cost of attendance, and therefore you need to divide that maximum refund that you get per semester over the number of months based on your expenses. And you're going to think about all of those fixed expenses that you can't change, which is your rent, tuition, fees, any other school-related mandatory expenses. and the other expenses, which could be a little bit of luxury that you may be able to change. So I already talked a little bit of this. These are your choices, you know, when you're looking at most of the time as adults or students. So understanding your needs and wants is a big thing on budgeting, right? So some of the things are your wants. You may not necessarily need to spend. And some of the things are on your expenses list are your needs that you have to spend. There's no way out of it. So rent obviously is what? A need, because you have to live somewhere unless you're living with your parents. Is anyone living with the parents? Okay, that's very good. You're saving a lot of money. Don't worry about leaving your parents' house yet. Save as much money as you can. So there's nothing wrong with you living with your parents, even if you're in medical school, if you can. But for those who don't, and I know most of you don't, you have your own rent, so it is an expense that you have to pay every month. Food, obviously, you have to eat to survive. I put a little bit something for the girls, manicure. Some may think that it is a necessity, but maybe you can do it more, you know, not every weekend, but less often as a student. Gym membership is big among the guys. They have to have gym membership, but they don't have to have it here. Why? Because VCU gives you gym membership through VCU. So it's already in your fees, so utilize it to the max. Vacation, okay. Of course, you're studying hard, you deserve vacation, but you're not supposed to go on your vacation with student financial aid refund, right? So you're not supposed to have these extravagant vacations on your financial aid refund. Why? Because these are student loans you're borrowing against your future. So when you're planning a vacation and majority of it is coming from your student loan, think about it. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're doing that, it's best that you don't share it with me or with the financial aid people. New car. So some of you are in some type of education that requires you to have your own transportation. I know medical students go to different rotations. You may be in a program that also requires that, so you may need to go train somewhere else other than this school campus. So cars are sometimes necessity when you start a professional program. So most of you bring your own car, or you're good for a year or two without a car, and when you're in the third or fourth year, you need a car. And what if your old car breaks down while you're going through your education? So now that you weren't counting on having a car expense, but now you're forced to buy a new car, and your parents can help you a little, but you're going to have to come up with all these expenses. So these are things to consider. Gifts for friends, forget about it. You are all students. You don't need to buy gifts for your friends. You are working off of a budget that you're borrowing with a little bit of higher interest rate from the federal government. Why I said that? Because the student loan interest rates have been a little bit higher than the market, right? So private student loans right now are providing cheaper interest rates if your credit is good. However, majority of you here, I would say 90%, 99% of you who are here today are in some type of health professions field. When you're in health professions, there are some loan repayment programs that you may benefit in the future. That's why we would like to keep you in the federal student loan borrowing. But the federal student loans are good and they come with a lot of benefits, but the interest rates that you're currently borrowing are at a little bit higher rate than the market. So that's why it's another reason you need to be conscientious about your borrowing, and you need to be conscientious about your budgeting, so that hopefully you don't always borrow up to the maximum that's available to you. Right? Dining out, okay, you're gonna have to do one or two things that gives you some type of pleasure, so you can't avoid everything. But this is the main cost most of you have. Eating out, basically, when you're especially away from home. If you're packing your lunch, that saves you a lot of money. So I would strongly suggest that you prepare your own lunches. Here and there you will have to do maybe dinners outside, but most of you will be spending so much money on your lunches if you're always eating out. So I strongly suggest that you pack your lunch. Some of you may have credit cards, which is a good thing. If you're using your credit card to build credit history, or you're using your credit to use it for emergencies, that's fine. You can also use your credit card to keep your track of your spending. So you can charge everything, and at the end of charging everything, if you're paying it in full, that's fine. That if you pay the credit card bill within the grace period, whether it's 25 days, sometimes it's 25, sometimes it's 30, depends on the credit card, then that's fine. It helps you to build your credit as well as keep track of your spending. Why is it important to keep track of your spending? You can look at some of the things maybe you are unnecessarily spending or charging, and maybe next month you change that, and maybe you have a aha moment. Hey, you know, I've been spending so much on lunch, eating out, now I'm going to pack my lunch kind of thing. Tuition and fees, there's nothing you can do about it. So tuition and fees are set by the school, and since we're a state institution, it's set by the Board of Visitors based on the recommendation of the school. So whatever tuition and fees you have that year, unfortunately, you're going to have to pay for it. We have been good at keeping our tuition increases to minimum, but unfortunately the times have changed. We had a little bit of tuition increase in medical school for especially the out-of-staters this year. So you need to worry about that too. Health insurance. How many of you are still on your parents' health insurance? Okay. So once you're no longer able to be on their insurance, that's going to be another cost for you. In most cost of attendances or budgets, financial aid budgets, we do provide health insurance allocation for you. So the university does not automatically charge you the health insurance, but majority of the health professions programs require that you have health insurance because you're dealing with patients, right? So the health insurance is allocated in the cost of attendance for you, and you go out there and search for the health insurance that you want to purchase. But that's a mandatory cost for you. So question your needs and wants. That's where I'm coming with all of these items. So why do I want it? If you're about to spend money on something, number one, remember it's your financial aid money that you're borrowing against your future. Number two, why do you want it? Would this change your life if you had it? And which things are important and essential to me, okay? So, do you have to have that manicure so badly? You know? Is there any way maybe you can do it yourself? Or do you have to sign up for ACAC rather than utilizing VCU gym? So, or maybe it's as easy as, you know, achieving your health care goals. Maybe it's as easy as taking a walk, okay? So think about all of these things and think about the interest rate on the loans that you're borrowing. So I suggest to think about it for a day before you make that non-essential spending. And if you still have to have it, do it and suffer the consequences, okay? Because you're going to suffer the consequences, okay? So there's nothing I can do at that point. You thought about it, you still want to do it. You're all adults, so you're going to do it. Okay. So let's talk about where you're at you know, with your life. So your reality is, majority of you or all of you, is it a true statement if I say all of you have no earned income at this point because you're all full-time students? It's not a true statement. So some of you are working. Okay, so some of you are working, but I would still think that majority of you have no earned income. So you are relying heavily on financial aid. You may be receiving some help from the family, but I know if they have already paid for your undergrad, probably they're done. They're like, okay, I'll help you some, but you're pretty much on your own in the professional or graduate school. And some of you may be working, like I said, part-time, or PhDs may be having the full-time job. So, but pharmacy, dental, medicine, I don't know if I'm missing anyone else. We do not recommend our students to work while in school because it will greatly affect your success. I know for sure medicine, we tell our students you cannot work. So if you do, your grades will suffer, your success will suffer, and we don't want that to happen. Why? Because most of you will have to take probably boards, medical students could move on with residency, and how you did in medical school affects how well you will be matching to the specialty program that you will match. Dental students may want to move on to postgraduate dental. There are so many other specialties that you can even be more specialized rather than general dentistry. So how you're doing in all of these schools will affect your future career. So that's why we don't recommend you work. That's why you don't have the other income that you might earn if you were working part-time as students. So again, even if you're an undergraduate student, which I think we don't have any undergraduates, but in case we have one or two, I'll say working too much will also affect your GPA, which will then affect your success in getting to the professional school that you may want to get into. It's almost, the undergraduate degree is almost absolute now. Nobody continues their life without at least having a master's degree. So I see a lot of people now not living at the undergrad level, moving on to master's or more. So what you do as a student at the undergraduate level will definitely affect you. So your choices. So if you rely on financial aid, I always say, always apply in the beginning of the cycle. Majority of this group right now is graduate or professional students, and honestly, there's not much free help other than the scholarships that you may have, other than maybe something that you can find on your own or what the school itself is providing. Definitely listen to the financial aid person, because each school is awarding their scholarships differently. So here we have a separate application, and which is called Profile. I know dental is not doing that, and I know other schools are not doing that. So whatever school you're attending, definitely follow the instructions that they're telling you to be at least eligible for a scholarship. If you're eligible for a scholarship, even if it's just $5,000 per year, it does reduce the amount of loan that you're borrowing, right? So it helps you with your future debt. And you still get the cost of attendance that is dedicated to you for your expenses, but the variation of what you're getting, at least you will have a little bit of less debt upon graduation. Again, graduating on time saves you a lot of money. So if you graduate from your schools on time, that is less expenses for you, right? So if your time within your school is extended, what happens? You have to pay at least a semester or two more tuition. You may need to borrow more loans, and now your expenses that we talked about, which is the fixed expenses, tuition and fees, and your rent that now that you're here one more year, so it's going to go all up. Being successful, graduating on time definitely gives you, it's a plus. You don't have to spend as much. So if you're going to attend a master's or a PhD program or a professional school, if you're staying in state school, you're saving a lot of money. But if your heart is attending to that out-of-state school, don't let borrowing defer you from your goal, because maybe you think the curriculum is a better match for you and you'd rather attend there. It would never hurt you to be in touch with the financial aid office, because the financial aid office may have something that you don't know or you're not aware. Even a simple email to whoever your contact is in the school that you're attending may provide you some type of guidance. So keep in touch with your financial aid people. It could be, hey, what's available to you, and they may not tell you anything that's free that's available, but it could be a future advice on how to pay your student loan. It could be sit down with one of them, work on a budget sheet for you for the year. It could be any of those help areas that you get help from the financial aid office. Usually if you make an appointment, we have time to sit down with you. At the School of Medicine, we try to see whoever walks into our office immediately. But if it's like, hey, can you sit down with me and work on a budget with me, we will do that, but it's best probably to make an appointment. Your personal goals. So at this point, your personal goals will definitely affect your budget. So I gave you a sheet that has the majority of the goals, the highlights of the goals. Your goals here at this point, the main job that you have is you're all students. So your main goal, I would suspect, is educational. You have social, financial, family, health, and recreational goals. So these are the types of goals that shape your life, right? So I don't know if I can have probably a couple of minutes to work on an exercise. So I thought if you think about your personal goals and what they are, if you can identify what's most important to you, it can affect your future budgeting. And you can budget around those expenses or get rid of the expenses that are avoiding you, from reaching those goals. So these are your basic goals, basically your life is based on. You can think of what are those goals and what goals are important and how to prioritize those goals. If you can take maybe at least a couple of those goals, maybe I gave you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 goals, and maybe answer the 3 most important ones to you. And I'm not going to ask anyone to share. So let's take 2 minutes, and on the sheet, just for your own good, write down what goals are important to you and what are you trying to achieve. It could be as simple as pass the exam, pass the boards, finish the year, pay my rent on time, So it could be as simple as that. I'll just give it 2 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes is up. I know this was so rushed, but I don't have so much time. It's only a 45-minute presentation. So, one more question before I move on. How many of you actually create a budget to spend your financial aid so you don't run out of money? Okay, so I see a few hands. How many of you don't create a budget but you don't run out of money and you're good? Even though you don't create a budget. Okay. How many of you don't create a budget and you always have financial problems? And you always have to go get more loans because you didn't do a plan well? Nobody's brave enough to raise their hand. Okay, that's fine. So, how many of you can share what you came up with? I'm not going to force anyone. Is there anyone who can share what they came up with? Okay, I'm not forcing you. You want to share it? Okay, we have one brave person here. Okay, so
Any of the goals?
any of the goals that you have.
For financial goals, I'll share 2 of the ones that I put for that. I said to have my credit card debt paid off, which isn't extravagant, but that's something I would obviously like to have done. And then to start investing.
Okay, so for financial goals, she has had her credit card debt paid and start investing. Okay, it's very important to see the picture and to have your goals and have them clear. Why? Because based on what you have in your mind and what you want to achieve, you're going to work towards it, right? So if you didn't have pay off my credit card debt goal, you're not going to work towards it. So seeing it is half of the achieving. That's why it's very important you have a moment with yourself and you look at, okay, when it comes to health, what am I trying to achieve? You having your health or having less burnout while in school may mean doing something more than attending VCU gym, okay? So those are the things. Everybody has their priorities different. Obviously, you're all students, so your education goal is very important. But other than that, your financial goal is important. That's why we're all here now. It could be something else that's important to you in your life that is affecting your budgeting and spending. And until it's clear to you and you build your budgeting and spending accordingly, you're not going to be able to achieve those goals or control your other expenses that are not important to you. So that's why just do this exercise by yourself and come up with whatever you think is important to you and prioritize accordingly. So depending on where you are in life, right, your budgeting and spending decisions change, right? So I'm going to skip the undergraduate part because I think all of you are professional and graduate students. So as a professional student, your budgeting and your spending relies on, okay, you're going to finish school. Maybe while in school you may have some emergencies and maybe you need to take some tests before you get your diploma, like medicine does the boards. Does dentistry have anything? You have the boards to pass as well? Okay, so all of those may be extra costs for you. Maybe you need a prep course, hopefully not. Or maybe, God forbid, you failed it and now you have to take it again. It's another expense for you. So those are the things as a professional student is affecting you. When you're early in your career, your choices will differ. The things that are important to you probably will change because now you're no longer a student. You have a little bit of income, hopefully. Or if you're in a profession where you need more training, that you're not making as much money yet, but you're stuck with all these student loan debt, which applies to medicine, unless dental also chooses to do post-grad dental. So in early career, you're more worried about establishing yourself in life, right? Okay, finally I have a career, finally I finished school, I have all these fixed expenses, but I also want to do a couple of other things with my income and my money. That is about when you, it may seem early, but that is when you should also be starting thinking about retirement, right? Whatever little money you have as a professional early in your career, you start thinking about your retirement, and whatever the employer is offering you, I would suggest try to maximize it if you can. Mid-career, you're now making more money, you may have kids in school, you may be a parent by then, so you're thinking about other expenses in life. You're thinking about the cost of, maybe you want to keep your job, so you don't want to be a stay-at-home mom or dad, so you're still working, there's the cost of daycare, there's saving for kids' education, there's saving for life's emergencies. Always save for life's emergencies because those things always happen. The roof may leak in the house that you just bought, the car may break down. I actually had my car break down 2 days ago. I was sitting nicely on the 3rd Street for 2 hours waiting for a tow truck. So those things happen. It was the alternator, by the way. If anybody is, wondering. So those things may happen, and late career is definitely, you don't want to be in a situation where you're in your late career, and then you are about to retire in a couple of years, but you're finding out because you didn't use your budgeting and smarting habits wisely, and you didn't save enough, you need to now work extra number of years and you cannot retire. Don't say it will never happen to me, and don't say I'm in a profession where I will make a lot of money. It can always happen to you. I'll give you an example. I will not say where and when. I had a student medical student who graduated with $500,000 debt. Don't say how that happens. And when I sat down with the student and calculated the value of her loan repayment, if she pays it out of pocket, she will pay it over 20 years and it will cost her up to $1 million. So for someone who's starting her life like this, it is very possible, even though she may be in a well-paid specialty, that she may need to work extra years to achieve that retirement goal for herself. So the decisions that you're making, even as students now, with your financial aid borrowing, I can only say that because that's the main income that you have, or with any other income that you may have, the decisions that you're making right now, or going on that vacation with that credit card rather than with your saved money, is going to drastically affect you in your future. You never want to be in a situation where you don't have the financial freedom that you want, so you can actually do the things that you want in life. We already talked about this. I'm not going to talk about it again. Think about it also in terms of time frame when it comes to your goals, to achieve those goals. Obviously, short term could be very short, mid-term could be 2 to 12 months, and long term could be a year and longer. It wouldn't hurt to make plans based on what you want to achieve. That you can look at 5-year plan, and you can look at where you want to be and see if, you can do a mental plan, obviously, if you like, or put it on a paper and then refer back to it 5 years later and see if you have achieved any of those things that you thought you wanted to achieve. Again, prioritize your goals. Why I keep saying all of these goals all the time is because your budgeting and your spending habits will shape, all of these goals if you're going to be able to achieve them or not. The basic goal, obviously, is get out of debt or don't be in debt, right? It's almost inevitable if you're a professional graduate student that you're going to have some student loan debt. Okay, that is the reality right now. Majority of the students have student loan debt, and it's even in every election that the candidates are talking about. We're going to make college free because it is a major thing when it comes to education now. So it is a fact that majority of you will graduate with debt. you may have other debt as well, such as credit cards, and down the road when you're early career, mid-career, you may have the first house that you buy. After you buy your first house, you may want a nicer one. So your debt is a part of your life. Obviously, it's not realistic to get out of your mortgage debt fast because majority of people cannot afford it in a very short time. But maybe you can make it a goal of getting out of your other debts, such as credit card debt fast. Student loans is a different subject. You may want to get out of it fast, depending on what you're doing, or if you're utilizing one of the resources that are available to you when it comes to repayment, such as public service loan forgiveness, maybe you will take the longer route for a reason. Definitely save money for retirement. As early as your first job, as early as residency for medical students. Whatever the hospital is offering you, make sure you match it up to the max, okay? So save at the maximum level as early as possible. So what will that give you? Eventually your financial freedom. Financial freedom is the best thing to have. Why? Because you can do basically anything you want in life. If you're thinking about changing jobs, you can change your job because you have the freedom. You don't have to stay in that job that you're so miserable because financially maybe this job pays more or you can't afford to relocate, so on and so forth. So it gives you all the freedom that you want. Budgeting sheet, I gave you a copy of this. Budgeting sheet could be as simple as this. You can write your monthly expenses on a sheet every month and see where you're spending. Or it could be like this on an Excel spreadsheet. This is an actual budget I sat down and did with a medical student, okay? So this is a true story, basically, okay? I'm not disclosing who, but this is an actual medical student who kind of had to borrow up to the maximum. As you can see, there is a cost that I can't get over, the parking cost. So where she's renting, she's paying $125 parking per month, which is a huge cost. So I gave this to you for you to see. You can do an Excel spreadsheet on a monthly basis based on, this is cash from financial aid, but you get refund from financial aid, spread it over the number of months, and some months she has higher expenses because at some point her medical insurance with the parents is going to end, so she's stuck with the insurance herself. At some point she has the board exam that she has to take, so that's an additional cost that month. So you could do this by yourself, or if you're not comfortable, you can make an appointment with one of us and get help for the first time, if you like. So I just wanted you to see how it works. Okay, I am almost done because we want to finish on time. The most common rule is 50-20-30 when it comes to budgeting. 50% of your income should go to your living expenses. 20% to your financial goals. Could be, paying on that credit card debt, and 30% of your income should be used for flexible spending. So maybe one month you're going out 2 times for dinner, one time you're going out with friends and spending money on dinner and movie. Let's get crazy. So all of those things, okay? I know I'm being sarcastic because you're students and you shouldn't spend so much money, but also you cannot be burned out. You need to enjoy life as well, right? So you need to do the things that also charges your batteries. So I'm not saying don't do them all, just do them in a manner that's not going to affect you in the long run. So 7 tips on effective and stress-free budgeting. Obviously, I kept saying understand your goals. This is from different resources. Everybody is saying understand your goals because that ties into your budgeting and spending and how you're going to spend your money. Track spending for a week. That actually may give you an epiphany moment, okay? I do an exercise with AAMC with the undergraduate students. I have a 2-day workshop. We track their spend. We send them a workbook and track their spending for a week. They end up with so many aha moments. So you may have an aha moment on your spending if you track it for a week. Use the 3-category budget. So if you want to change something in your budget and you have a financial goal that you want to achieve, select 3 items that you can control, and maybe you can spend less on those to achieve your other goals, okay? So you cannot target everything because not everything is up to you. to spend. You have your fixed costs, but maybe select 3 of them and see what you can control. Charge it, I mean it in a nice manner, which is charge it to see your spending, okay? So not charge it to charge it and go on that extravagant vacation, but charge it to see where's your money going. Save first, always save. Always save, always have emergency cash. If you're all financial aid students, I know that's not a correct statement. Some of you are not, because some of you are PhDs who are already having income. But whatever income you have, always give yourself first, even if it means I'm going to put away $25 every month and I'm not going to touch it kind of thing, even if it is as little as that, because over time that will grow. Again, Elizabeth Warren made that famous. Senator Elizabeth Warren tried the 50-20-30 plan and used the right tools. So I give you some tools here. This presentation will be posted on the website, as well as it can be emailed to you if you request it. So I gave you some tools here. You can go online and look at these apps. And I think this concludes my presentation. So if you need to reach us, these are our contact information. My office is actually at the 4th floor of this building. Any questions?